Hi, welcome to Journey with Jess. I'm your host, Jessica Monge, and today we're going to be talking to my cousin, Yeimy. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Yeimy's journey from El Salvador all the way here to the US, her relationship with her father, and a few cultural shocks she faced along the way. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. So, as I've told you guys, Yeimy, that is my cousin. I came here to the wonderful country of the USA at 6 years old with her mom. So she was very young, and her mom was also a young mom as well. So, Yeimy, why don't you talk to us about what you remember about coming over here?
I definitely remember everything, the whole trip. I remember from us being in El Salvador and that morning, us leaving and
so walk us through everything.
Okay, so it was the morning. I remember my uncle, mi tío Efraín, he was my second dad basically over there so my dad came to the States and then it was just me and my mom, I want to say, for either a year and a half or 2 years.
So he left around when you were 4 or 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, around that, which I even remember the night that he left.
Oh, he left that night?
Yeah, he left that nighttime, and I don't know, it was early morning. All I remember is it was dark. All I knew is he had to leave, and we were gonna see him one day again, and then afterwards it was just me and my mom crying.
Was it kind of an indefinite thing? You guys didn't know when you guys were gonna see each other one day, or did you guys know in 2 years we're gonna go to?
No. So it was definitely not a set thing. We're gonna go and see him again. All they told me was you're eventually gonna see him again. That's as far as I knew. But I was also young. I didn't I didn't have the mental capacity to actually think what it all involved. So it was me and my mom for 2 years. It was good times. My mom, she was always home. Thankfully, my dad always provided for us. And my mom, sometimes she did work, but she didn't really have to. So we were definitely blessed in that aspect that she was always there. She always made sure I was involved in all these school activities. So I definitely I had a great childhood. Even though my dad wasn't present, I would talk to him on the phone. I would get him that. But thankfully, my mom was always made sure, I got to do everything. So I definitely had a great childhood in El Salvador. And then I remember I was 6 already. And then my mom one day told me that she was going to come to the States.
Without you?
Yes, without me. So
originally it was without you?
So originally it was just going to be my mom who was going to come here.
Wow.
And then she's you're going to stay with, I think I was supposed to stay under the care of my uncle, my tío Efraín, who was my second dad, just because we were so close and I was going to be under him. And then she's I'm going to go and I'm going to work and I'm going to send you all the toys and everything you could possibly think of. I was 6. I was okay, I was completely okay with that. And thinking back, I was oh my gosh, no. So originally the plan was just for my mom to come here by herself.
Oh, wow.
And then that quickly changed because my mom was yeah, no, I'm not doing this without, if Yeimy doesn't go, I'm not doing this, I'm not leaving her here. So originally it was just going to be my mom who was gonna come, and then that quickly changed, and then she talked to my dad, and my dad's okay, let me see what I can do here, because of course we were gonna come here illegally, so with a coyote. He had to make sure he had the money for it. Then next thing you know, it's I remember I had my backpack that I was packing up also.
How many things did you guys bring with you? You just had that one book bag?
Did I remember I had that one book bag, and I remember it so vividly because your mom actually sent that book back, my aunt. She sent the book bag, and it was a Clifford book bag. And I remember I had a little teddy bear, which I actually brought with me here, and this, and a hat. And I know I had clothes. I know my mom had a bag also, but I think it was just the book bag each that we
one book bag each?
Yeah, that we pretty much had. So I remember that morning, early morning, my uncle, he came and picked us up at our house, and then we pretty much, thankfully, all the family lives close by. Yeah. So we pretty much made little pit stops at everyone's house to say goodbye that morning.
How emotional? How did you feel emotion-wise? Were you excited?
Yes. Emotionally, I was very excited because, I was going to come. I knew I was going to see my dad. So that's, I was really excited about that. I didn't know what this trip was going to entail or anything. All I knew is, I was with my mom. Me and my mom, like I said, we were alone for those 2 years. So we definitely were close. So she was, my safe space. So if I was with my mom, I was pretty much fine. And then I knew I was going to come and, like, see my dad. So I was very excited.
Did you have any idea of what, like, how the trip would look like?
No.
So you didn't even get a chance to be a little anxious or nervous about it?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
You were feeling a little blind?
I didn't know, like, everything that it was going to entail. All I knew is that I was going to come and see my dad. That's as far as I know. And I was going to be with my mom the whole time. Mm-hmm. That morning, we pretty much made pit stops, said goodbye to everyone. And then we finally got to a location which, like, there was, like, this, like, pickup truck, or there was, like, a car there, and there was, like, a bunch of people already in it, and then that was a car that we were going to go on. So we said goodbye to my uncle, and I remember that crying because, like I said, like, he was, like, my second dad. So, like, I knew I was leaving him. Didn't know when I was going to see him again, so that was very emotional for us. And then we left, and then from there, that's pretty much where it picked up. I don't remember, like, everything day to day, but I do remember us becoming close.
The group?
With the group. It was close with the group. I remember there being, like, a young girl with, like, red hair. For some reason, she was, like, very close to my mom and, like, us. Okay, hold on. I have to look up a map because I'm not good with my geographics. It was from El Salvador to Guatemala, and from Guatemala to Mexico. We would travel, like, at nighttime through, like, the deserts. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like, location-wise where we were specifically, but I remember, like, it would be at nighttime, and it would be in the desert. And it would be from, like, one car to, like, another car. And that's how we pretty much moved. I remember we were going to cross into Mexico. And there was actually a teacher from Guatemala who he would teach in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So he would travel back and forth, like, through the border, like, normally. Mm-hmm. So I remember how we were going to get through was that my mom was going to go in the passenger side as his wife. I was in the back, and he had a family of his own. So, like, I was in the back. I was in a car seat. He gave me some of his kids' toys. And I remember that's how we crossed into Mexico with the help of this teacher. At this point, we were separated from the group, but we were all going to meet up eventually in Mexico.
So you guys all had separate plans in a meetup point? Pretty
much, yeah. So we definitely all had different plans. We were all going to meet up there, and actually where we were in Guatemala, I actually forgot the teddy bear that I had. Aww. And I remember I had a wallet also with some stuff in it. I don't even know what I had, but I remember there was a wallet, and I even forgot about the teddy bear. But then when I got to Mexico and we met up with the whole group, they actually gave me the teddy bear. They're like, "You forgot this."
Oh, that's so
I was reunited with the teddy bear in Mexico.
Were you the youngest?
I was the youngest, yeah. Oh, wow. I was 6 years old. I was the only child.
You were the only kid?
I was the only kid wow. For the group. And I don't know how old everyone else was, but I know I was definitely the youngest. And yeah, so I remember that. I remember there was one point where, like, the way they had us travel was that, so you know those, like, big coach buses?
Yeah.
Yes. So they, on the sides where they put, like, the luggages, there's, like, a compartment where instead of luggages, it was, like, a big mattress, which apparently, like, the driver sometimes would go and sleep there.
Oh.
And I remember it was, like, they stuffed, like, I think, like, 8 of us in there.
Oh, shit.
And I don't know where we were traveling to and from, but I remember, like, they had us all, like, come in there, and we were all very close. And I remember being all the way towards the end. And thankfully, like, it even had, like, an AC.
So it was hard to breathe there?
It was a little hard to breathe there from what I remember. I know I slept for most of the part. I remember waking up and they were, like, joking around because we had our shoes off. So it's like, oh, like, you had, like, your sock in this person's mouth. Like, ha, ha, ha. So, you know, we had that. And then I don't know where that bus was traveling to and from. But when they pretty much dropped us off, it was nighttime. And all I know is, like, they opened up and they were like, okay, like, everyone, like, come out. And then we had to, like, go under, like, a bridge. And then from there was pretty much someone else meeting us there. And that's how we traveled. I remember when we got to Mexico, I forgot where we were. There wasn't a lot of people. And I remember, like, the kids, they were eating lollipops. I had never seen that before. So I remember that. I was, like, spicy lollipops. And, like, I remember, like, kids, they were, like, with the lollipops. I remember that from Mexico.
What was one of the scariest times?
The scariest times? I'd probably say that trip that we made on, like, in that bus.
On the bus?
On the bus. I'd probably say that was, like, the scariest time. Just because it was, like, uncomfortable. But aside from that, I just know, like, you know, thankfully we did have a good trip. Nothing bad happened to us. So we were definitely blessed in that aspect. Because even when we had to, like, cross, like, Rio Grande into, like, you know, to Texas, they pretty much had these big tubes. They were explaining to my mom, she's gonna, like, sit on this and you're gonna, like, push it. And that's how you're gonna get across. And then, like, they're like, that's Texas. And they were like, most likely you will be caught by immigration. So, like, crossing that, like, we did know there was a big possibility of that happening. They were right. You know, we thankfully passed successfully. But once we got there, you know, immigration was there.
I thought you said some guy carried you on their shoulders.
We were in it too because I always make the joke, que yo no soy mojada, because I never actually got wet by the...
Yeah, no, because this is the first time you've ever mentioned the tube.
Yeah, no, we were in a tube. We were in a tube, and that's how... And then, I don't remember specifically if my mom was pushing the tube or if she was sitting down and then I was on top of her. All I remember is that I never got wet, so I always make that joke. I was like, I'm not, like... No soy una mojada. So then we got there, Texas, and then there was other people crossing with us also. So then we were taken in by immigration, and then we were incarcerated. I remember they kept us in like this like jail cell pretty much. The lights were on the whole time. They gave me a bologna sandwich and juice. They were like nice in the sense I remember thinking like they'd bring like snacks, and I think they felt bad because obviously I was a child. And next thing I know, they were pretty much like, okay, like you're free to go. I believe they had contacted family here. They had contacted my dad, and like legally, I don't know how,
right?
That, you know, like the works that went behind that. From there in Texas, we met up with. They picked us like after we were, you know, we got out. Then there was someone else who picked us up, and they brought us to their home. And this is still part of like, you know, how it was set up that it was going to happen, because I guess they didn't know there was a big chance that we were going to be picked up by immigration. So then once you get there, it's like pretty much someone gets you in Texas, and then from there they contact your family, and it's like, okay, like how are they going to get to you now? These people picked us up. They were so nice. Remember, they brought us to Walmart, and they like bought my mom and me like freshly new clothes.
Oh.
It was the first time I had like the tortillas that were like really thin, and I remember thinking like, these aren't real tortillas. Like what is this? And I remember drinking the water for the first time and thinking like, this water tastes so weird.
Oh yeah.
So
how long were you like? I know you probably didn't have a lot of clothes and stuff, so how long were you on like your last outfit, or was everything already dirty?
Clothes wise, I don't remember, but I did know like all I was left was pretty much with that teddy bear and this hat that I had. Just because as we were moving, it's like, okay, like you can't bring this over with you. They didn't let you. They're like, okay, like you need to start leaving some stuff behind. You know, the less you carry, the better. So I definitely was, whatever clothes I was wearing, I probably like the last few days I wore it like multiple times. Probably the only clothes that I had on me, I want to say. And I remember they even told us, don't bring any personal information, like nothing, this and that. And my mom, all she had was like a little paper with like everybody's phone numbers on it.
Oh.
And my mom was like, and we were gonna cross over. My mom's like, okay, like I need to leave this stuff behind. Like they told me, like don't bring any personal information in case of anything.
So what did she do? Memorize the numbers?
Well, she did memorize, I think, someone's number from here. And my mom's always been good with that. So she did memorize that. I was like, Mom, like, put it in my pocket. Like, they're not going to check my pockets. And she even brings it up all the time. She's like, do you remember what you said to me? Put it in my pocket. Like, no one's going to check my pocket. And she was like, no. Like, we can't, like, risk it. They said specifically. And then once we crossed over, like, no one ever checked my pocket. So I was like, Mom, like, you could have...
I told you.
You could have put it in my pocket, you know? So we always, like, laugh back at that, because I was like, you could have put the number in my pocket. You would have had everybody's numbers, Mom. Like, it would have been fine. So then these people picked us up in Texas. They took us into their home, and I guess they contacted my dad. And then I remember talking on the phone. They were like, okay, like, do you guys, you know, we'll get you a bus ticket, or do you guys want to fly? And I was like, Mom, like, I can't, like, be sitting down anymore. Like, my butt hurts pretty much. Because obviously it was going to be longer with, like, the bus. And I was like, I can't do that. So then we flew from Texas to New York.
What year did you fly in? Because I feel like, how could you have flown without like IDs and stuff?
I know, which is why I think back and I'm like, how did, because we did fly.
Yeah, I know like at one point it wasn't so strict and stuff, so you were sick, so 97, 98, 99. Oh, you're already, it was past.
It was 20 years ago, because in January, yeah, we made 20 years of being in this country.
So it was definitely 2003, so like I'm wondering, I don't know.
I don't know.
You flew.
Yeah.
Because you didn't, no documentation.
We didn't have any documentation with us. Yeah, no, nothing. So
that's crazy.
So I think back and I'm just like, oh my, what happened? I don't know.
I know I definitely had the same questions, because I knew, for some reason, I knew that you needed IDs to fly. Yeah. So I was like, how do they fly by plane?
I don't know.
I was so confused. I never researched it, but...
Yeah, no. I think back and I'm like, you know, and I'm like, how did these things happen? Like, so many questions. And we flew in to New York. You were there, like, your parents were there, my dad was there, my grandma was there. I remember seeing my dad and he looked different. I don't know if he had like a mustache or something, or like, just I hadn't seen him in a while. And
it was 2 years.
I know, and for some reason in my head I was like so excited for my dad, but then like when my dad was like hugging me, I also felt kind of like disconnected. I was like, oh, like at the same time I felt like a stranger.
Yeah.
He had balloons, and I didn't know what the hell like helium balloons were. The balloons go, and they just flap into the air, and I was so confused. I was like, what's going on?
You're so disappointed. I've been here for 2 seconds.
Yeah, and I'm just like, my balloons just went up, like, what's going on? And yeah, that was pretty much our trip.
So you talked about when you first saw your dad after 2 years, you felt very disconnected from him. How did that make you feel? Because I know you were super close with your mom, and you were super excited to see your dad, but it has been a long time. How did you feel about being disconnected, and what did you do to rekindle the relationship?
Like I said, so when I saw my dad again, like, it had been a long time. It did feel like, like he was a stranger. Mm. And it definitely took, I wouldn't say like a couple of months, because even like having him hug me felt like a little odd. And he always talks about like the memories when he was there, and he's like, oh, like I used to always bring you to me to play soccer, I went fishing, like you were always there, or, like I always had you here and there, and like wherever I was, So like it sucked because like he had all these memories with us, but for some reason like I didn't start remembering things until after he left. I don't have any memories of us, like, whatever we did. But after he left, I said, I remember that night he left. I remember, like, so many things in my life there, like, for those 2 years without him. I remember him being, like, like I said, present, like, calling me on the phone. He had this song that I used to like that he used to sing to me all the time, and I would, like, request him to sing it to me.
Oh, that's cute. What song was it?
It was, like, this bunny song. I know it.
Do you want to sing it to the people?
No. No,
funny song.
It was a song about a bunny. So he used to sing that, so like we were connected like that, and I remember being excited about seeing him, but then when I did actually see him, I felt like weird. I definitely had a wall between us, because at the same time, like I said, he felt like a stranger. I was much closer with my mom, and then it took a couple of months for me to just feel like comfortable, almost just like being with him. That did affect us like with the oncoming years, just because like I was always much closer with my mom, and like he knew that. We also have like the same personality, so like that didn't help, because
like you and your dad?
Me and my dad had like the same.
Clashes a lot?
It clashes a lot. And then just like growing up, I always felt like I had to get the last word, and he was pretty much the same way too. How
did you guys rekindle your relationship? How did he go from stranger to dad again? Besides just time.
A lot of it was time, and also my dad's always been like super affectionate, which I think like helped a lot, because then like I'm super affectionate also. He's super affectionate.
Your mom isn't.
My mom is like, she is with us. So
okay.
Yes, it's just like, well, it just.
But I always think about it in that relationship.
Yeah, it's like, her and my dad. She's
an opposite just like dynamic.
Yeah, no, but my mom, she like, if it's me, it's like she wants to hug me all the time and kiss me, and if I do it with her, like she loves that.
Right. And with Tony too.
And with Tony, it's just with my dad. She's like, don't touch me. It's my dad. How do me and my dad rekindle? A lot of it's time. A lot of it's like him being affectionate with me. For some reason, like I had this wall up with this, with this stranger in my head. So it was just also me being like, okay, like you can't be like this, because I could see that he wanted to get like closer with me, and I was kind of like back,
hesitant.
Hesitant, and it's like, okay, like this isn't fair for him, because it's like it's been like like all this time he's been missing you, and now here you are like kind of like.
Yeah, but I think it's understandable too. You're so young and you're having to navigate all these adult emotions. It is. I want to say a lot of it is honestly just time, and him always being the same with me, like regardless if I was kind of like he was always super affectionate, super motivational with everything, and also appreciating that's like thanks to him like we are here. But I would say like we are definitely like closer now that I'm much older, now that I could like an adult,
and I could appreciate like it's like the way he is. And then also growing up, he was always like the strict parent versus like, my mom. It's like with my mom, she'd let, tolerate a lot of things. And then with him, he'd always be very like on top of me. And I would be like, oh my gosh, like, it's always me versus him. But now it's like, no, like I could appreciate everything my dad did for me. I could appreciate why he was being stubborn about certain things. And I could understand him. He could have probably gone different about certain things. And then also like understanding why he is the way he is, or like why he reacts the way he reacts to certain things. So like helping me understand that.
His perspective.
Get some of his perspective. I did go to therapy, and one of the things we talked about was like me and my dad's relationship. Me versus him. Are we always clashing? And one of the biggest things is like I feel like I can't get through to my dad. And it's like I'm saying things, but like he's not listening. Or I always felt like he was like throwing like tantrums for some reason. So then of course like then she was like, tell me about your dad. How was him like growing up? He is the oldest of like two other brothers. So there's 3 of them. He's the oldest. And he had to grow up very fast, of course, because like my grandpa left him and his siblings and my grandma alone. So like at the age of like 9 or 10, he pretty much had to be like the man of the house. And because of that, of course, he had to like do a lot of like growing up fast. It definitely made me understand like why he is the way he is, rather than like, me getting mad and being like, why is he saying these things, or why is he speaking so out of pocket? I always felt like I had to like fight him on certain things, and like I had to raise my voice. Now that I'm older, I understand why he reacts the way he reacts. Like I said, he had a lot of growing up to do very fast. That little boy in him almost got lost because he had to be like a grown-up.
Oh, that makes sense why in times of stress his inner child fronts for him instead of his adult. I get it.
Yeah.
I work through the same things in therapy too, or like there's certain situations where like I get super anxious and shaky and I don't speak up for myself, and my therapist is like, who do you think that is? And I'm just like, it could be like my inner child that manifests during these stressful situations. So it could be similar for him, like during these moments of stress or not feeling heard, he goes to tantruming.
Yeah, which is why I'm like, why does he act like a child when we were arguing, or like he will just like say things, and in my head I'm like, is he even like listening to himself? Like some of these things sound ridiculous. So before I did feel like I had to like fight him and be like, no, like this, like X, Y, and Z, and always say something rather than like fighting him on it. Now I could understand why he's reacting that way. That child couldn't be heard because they were too busy growing up, helping my grandma out, helping his siblings out. There was no time for it. So now, of course, that little boy comes out and he's the one who throws the tantrums. He's the one who stomps his feet, because sometimes my dad does stomp his feet. And he does act childlike, and or he does say things that make no sense. And before, sometimes I used to like let those things like hurt me, and it's like, why is my dad being like this? Or like, why is he being mean?
Because then now your inner child is also kind of like, why is my dad like this? Like, who is my dad?
Yeah.
Like, it hurts your feelings.
Of course. And at times I felt it was like, okay, like who's being the adult here? But now I could understand it, and it kind of makes me like feel sad when he acts that way, because it's like, oh, like that's like the little boy in him.
That never got to be a little boy.
Who never got to be a little boy, and never got to like that healing. Okay, like I can't change my dad, I can't like react for him, but like I could definitely listen, and like I could control like the way I react. Him saying something out of pocket and me going and saying something out of pocket that later on I'm going to regret. If I feed more into it, it's just like a cycle. We're just gonna keep going. But now if I like stay quiet and I'm just like, okay, dad, like, you know what, like you're not listening to me, like we can't have a conversation because you're the only one talking right now. And
he responds well to that.
And he's definitely responding like better. Like in the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, like, I guess we were just so used to like that back and forth. Don't want that relationship going forward. I don't always want it to be like me versus him. There are certain things I can't change about my dad, and rather than like fight him on it, it's like it's easier for me to just like accept it. Like me accepting it, it's not like me giving up, it's me like understanding him.
That's a big growth moment.
It definitely was.
It comes with emotional intelligence too, because even if you tell certain people that, like they'll be like, I don't care,
Yeah, like my dad has done like so much for me. I want us to get closer, so then like I've definitely been working more towards that. I feel like he feels like he's heard.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I know. I was trying to watching you get emotional. I'm like, are you okay?
I know, I'm fine. Happy tears.
Happy tears. And I've noticed you've been trying to go to soccer games with him and do things that he loves and stuff. Yeah. Have you gone fishing with him yet?
We've gone crabbing before, like years. He used to love going crabbing, so I used to go with him. I do try to like do things that he likes, and
you're
it's
definitely
like,
trying, which is great.
He's been like super supportive. And, like, for anyone who knows my dad's, like, this big, sometimes he'll be, like, this big, tough guy, but he's also, like, the softest.
He's super soft.
And he cries probably more easier than I do.
cries a lot.
I do cry a lot.
Happy tears, sad tears, laughing
they're all happy tears. All good things, all good things.
Yeah.
So of course there are those moments where I just can't, stay quiet, and it's like, okay, like I need to like put you in your place, but I definitely
no one's perfect.
No one's perfect.
Yeah,
no,
you're trying. That's all that matters.
Yeah, so I definitely say there's now more good moments. Like, I opened up to my parents about like me going to therapy. I think like last year.
How do they respond to that?
They were actually very supportive for it.
That's
and
nice.
once I told my dad, he was the one crying. He's like, I'm so glad like you're doing whatever you have to do, so you're okay. That was definitely nice. And it's like, you're the reason I'm going to therapy.
He was like, bro, if only you know.
And I did tell him, and I was like, Dad, like I do want to like better our relationship. Like I don't want us like constantly arguing and fighting. I do want us to do better.
What did he say?
He feels the same way because he does. He did also, of course, feel. He's like, oh, like you're much closer to your mom, and it's like,
he's a little sad, jealous.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it's like you're much closer to your mom, and it's like
he probably feels left out because like his only boy he has is like 9.
I know, yeah. So we're definitely doing better. Constantly working on it. I'd say like therapy definitely like helped me.
If you went to therapy, would probably inspire your parents to go to therapy one day. I can see your dad maybe more than your mom.
Yeah, I could definitely see them being open to it. I had never really talked about therapy. Most like Latinos have this misconception. It's like, oh, like therapy, oh, they're crazy.
Yeah.
I never heard my parents
say anything
bad about therapy. We just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk about it with them because I was also afraid. I was like, I feel like they're gonna be understanding, but I also feel like they might like some way use this against me. Or like be like, oh, like you're being dramatic. Or just because like the moment when I did start therapy, it's like we were in a really like rough patch.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. But then afterwards, like once I felt much better and a few months had passed, I told them I was like, I'm actually doing therapy. And they were like, whatever you have to do so you feel better or makes you grow, do it. So they were super supportive about it. I didn't think I was going to get a negative reaction, but like it felt nice just being reassured. And being supported.
Thank you for being vulnerable. Did you feel any culture shocks when you started going to school or like when you came here in general? Like El Salvador, back when you lived there, and the United States now, there are different worlds. They're worlds apart. Did you feel a culture shock at all?
Yeah, for sure. The language.
Oh, yeah.
The language alone was very different. Going to school, I did feel like left out. Like I definitely remember like being in kindergarten. Didn't help that the teacher knew like no Spanish.
You were probably in ESL, right?
I was in ESL, yeah.
But prior to that, like you didn't learn any English at home with us? Oh, I remember my mom and I, or mainly my mom, trying to teach you, I do not speak English at home. And I was like, she could say don't. And she goes, no, that's like harder. I'm like, no, she could say don't.
You guys always watch things obviously in English and all the shows and everything. So I do remember like saying words, and I knew I wasn't like afraid to repeat words. Just because like when you're young, like you're like such a sponge, and I feel like at that age.
Yeah, you also weren't afraid.
Yeah.
You're afraid of things now, but you would climb trees and shit.
Yeah, I'm a complete pussy now, but like back no, because it's true. But like back then it was like no fear.
No, literally a different person.
Completely different person.
Whose kid was that?
I have no idea. But you know what? Thank you for being strong, because now I can be weak.
Interesting perspective.
So thank you. Growing up with you guys, like it was so much help because you guys just mostly spoke English, and then like all you watched was English, so I pretty much had no other choice. But then once I started school, like I definitely did feel lonely. And then I don't remember much of the ESL class. And then I remember in first grade, Miss Flowers, shout out to you. She was from Panama, so of course she spoke Spanish.
What's her real name, Miss Flowers? My mom was always like, she's not Miss Flowers. Her name is Miss Flores.
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, okay, because I remember that. I was like, Mom, you're just a hater. But she was like, no, she's Spanish. She's just Miss Flowers. I'm like, I don't know. It's cute anyways.
Having her as a teacher was like super helpful because then like it's like I felt less alone, obviously, and then especially when I I could communicate better with my teacher. But I want to say like in first grade I was definitely not shy to like say more words like in the classroom.
Oh, nice.
Then we transferred over to second grade and we changed schools, and I want to say at that point by second grade I knew pretty well English. Like that's when I finished my ESL classes. I still remember
we had the same third grade teacher, and I think at that point you had no problems.
Yeah, by third grade I was by second grade I was definitely like doing good. By third grade I was like second language at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely culture shock. It was definitely different when we first came here. In one bedroom was like, like my parents and me. And then coming from like El Salvador, like we had our
whole
house.
Land.
We had a whole land, and it's like I had a dog, and then like, you have so much back home, and you come here and it's like you pretty much like build from the ground up. but it definitely I'm okay. I'm okay. But it definitely makes you like appreciate and makes you want to like work hard for things. Came up from like a 1-bedroom with like my parents sharing for like a couple of years to like us having our own house now.
You were in a room with your parents till you were like in middle school, and then you guys moved to the basement.
Yeah, and then we moved to the basement,
which is like your whole apartment, and then you guys moved here.
Yeah, then we moved here. Then by the basement, I had like my own room, and then here I had my own room, and you know, it's been like baby steps.
Yeah.
It's been the process, but it's been great.
Was there anything else that you felt like was a culture shock, like the food or smells or anything that we did like custom wise? I know your mom was like, "Wow, fast food, Burger King, like you just order here and then like they're done by the time we get there." I remember that when we went to, I forgot where we were going, but it was in Hempstead. She was just so surprised about how fast the fast food was, how fast they got it ready.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think back. I think the fact that I was a kid, I was just like overall excited in those moments where I felt like alone, which was obviously in school because I didn't have anyone else there, and it was just pretty much me. But aside from that, let's say I pretty much like picked up like the way of living here pretty fast.
Yeah, you were young.
Yeah, I was young, so I didn't really have much of that, thankfully.
That's good.
Yeah.
So Yeimy, thank you so much for getting on the podcast. I know how nervous you were about picking a topic, and thanks for being vulnerable for people who are listening. Is there any piece of advice or final words you want to give out to them?
My final words to the people back home: always work hard. There's always room for improvement and growth. It's okay to not be okay. At the end of the day, we're all humans. We all make mistakes, but all that matters is how you grow from them. Every mistake, there is a lesson. In those moments when things feel tough, feel those feelings. Always know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Things always get better. In the midst of the chaos, you can't always see that, but things at the end always work out. You always keep pushing forward even in those moments where things feel tough. Thanks for listening to Journey with Jess.